When you have a figure like jolly old St. Nicholas that is so deeply ingrained in our culture and pop culture, it's no wonder there are so many stories about him. And from time to time, people try to get creative and try to bring Santa into new areas. I remember a couple years ago I introduced Super Santa, and remember when Rudolph was just a promotional gimmick for department stores, not to mention Frosty, the elves, toys, and even this guy named Jesus. I think Santa was like his Padawan or something. I know he's part of some sort of prequel that I should read, but the book is like 700 pages long, and I got stuff to buy. Anyway, my point is that every once in a while, people try to spice things up. And one emerging trope involves Santa having offspring. I may still have Patton Oswalt on my brain because one of his bits almost comes instantly to mind.
What does the father say to the kid when the kid gets old enough to go, "Where did I come from, Daddy?" See, when a man loves a woman very much, he heaves himself off of his hemorrhoid donut and he takes 3 Viagra, a beta blocker, and an eyedropper full of blood thinner. Then he lays on top of his beloved like a pile of laundry on top of another pile of laundry.
But as hard as it may be to believe, there are tons of stories involving Santa's kids. But I think there's one that rises above the rest. A character created by a legend of my childhood that has managed to put everything I loved about his previous works into one nice package. Today we'll be looking at Jingle Belle, the daughter of Santa Claus. Crash course in Warner Brothers animation renaissance of the early 90s. Paul Dini would be one of the most defining talents of Tiny Toons in the Batman animated series. How good is he? Well, let's put it this way. You know the critics' top 11 Batman episodes, right? Well, Dini wrote 7 of them. On top of that, he locks up the top 4 entries. I think what makes Dini so special is the fact that he can write comedy and he can write drama. More importantly, he can do both at the same time. He manages to bring out the inherent silliness of the characters while at the same time looking through their eyes, exploring their desires, their affections, their failures, all to show that what really makes them so quirky might just be a coping mechanism. You can use this to lighten up darker characters, or even give weight to zany cartoons. Either way, the result is the same, creating more relatable and compelling characters. But getting back to Dini's original creation, the premise is simple. We've seen it a few times before, actually. Santa has a daughter, an obnoxious, self-absorbed schemer who's prone to any whim that passes through her pretty blonde head.
Well, the joke's on you. I'm not even a real blonde.
Yes, isn't it ironic that the daughter of St. Nicholas often finds herself on Santa's naughty list? However, through events beyond anyone's control, Jingle finds herself flung headfirst into the journey of a lifetime. And as she overcomes obstacles and stands up against oppression, she slowly starts to realize the true meaning of her father's work. And even though forgiveness may be given freely, the price of one's own personal redemption is quite hefty. I'm just kidding. The whole thing plays out like Tiny Toons and Animaniacs. Wacky comedy and such. But I got you, didn't I? Made you think Neil Gaiman wrote that shit. Alright, so what exactly makes this series so different from any other Santa story? Well, for starters, it's not just that. At its core, the story is really about a famous, hardworking father and a privileged, playboy, smart-mouthed daughter who don't see eye to eye, resulting in many humorous conflicts. Then when you set this in the Santa mythos, you've got a lot to play with. Like, how do these people live, work, play, and surprisingly, how they affect world politics. And naturally, you can comment on the toy industry itself and the changing tastes of kids. Santa himself is depicted less of a joyful old tinkerer and more of a Steve Jobs of the toy world. And not to mention the premise opens the world to all sorts of mythological and holiday-themed creatures. For example, Jingle Belle's best friend is named Polly Green of Autumn Falls, a young witch who often helps Jingle with her plans, but also hopes to one day establish herself as the official mascot of Halloween. Well, I could think of someone that might object to that. Look, there's even Peter Krampus himself. You remember him from last year's video. The oppressive spirit that punishes the bad kids while Santa rewards the good, and who Jingle Belle lovingly refers to as Uncle Pete. I'm sorry I didn't mention his appearance here when I made that video, but I'm making up for it now. It's interesting how Uncle Pete often goes easy on Jingle, while on the other hand her dad goes ballistic whenever she does anything. Wait a minute, in this story, Jingle is a baby when Santa and Krampus dissolve their partnership. That means she's gotta be hundreds of years old. She's a cougar! And that seems to be the perfect segue into something you may have already noticed. In many ways, Jingle Belle isn't just naughty, she's... naughty. Well, this is Paul Dini. Him and Bruce Timm have done brave and bold things with Warner Brothers Animation, but I think they're also a major influence on how Michael Bay casts his background actors. Every female in those cartoons have like a perfect figure.
I gotta start wearing pants.
Even the ones that are supposed to be fat and homely are at least a 6. And we are, after all, talking about the guy that created Harley Quinn, which means he's responsible for more young jerk meat than a Jamaican veal farm. Enjoy the poetry of that, Mr. Dini. It's my Christmas gift to you, and to the world. But my favorite story is Santa Claus vs. Frankenstein, which is actually about as deceptive a title as the 1950s Universal Monsters movie. You see, Jingle Belle finds the monster in an ice cavern. You know, at the end of the actual novel, the monster chases his creator far north. Of course, being set free in modern day, Frankenstein is happy to find that he's become a pop culture icon. With nowhere to go, Jingle gets him a job working on monster toys, since the jolly old elves don't exactly like making them. Santa is dubious at first, but everything seems to work out. Until Frank sees how upset Santa is about a smear campaign being run against him by a political blowhard. So he and Jingle attempt a goodwill mission, with Frank posing as Santa. Because if these people are stupid enough to actually listen to anti-Santa rhetoric, then they're stupid enough to mistake a muscular 7-foot reanimated blue corpse for Santa. However, things don't go as planned when Frank realizes he's grabbed a bag of monster toys by mistake. Naturally, they don't go over well with the ultra-conservative primitives. Honestly, where do you find torches in modern day?
Buy your torches and pitchforks here.
Luckily, the real Santa shows up, which gives Jingle Belle an idea to reveal the monster and asks him to play along. The monster pulls a Watchman by mock fighting with Santa, and then takes a fall, thus restoring Santa's reputation as a good guy. Meanwhile, Jingle manages to get the politician to admit, on camera, that she was just villainizing an easy target in order to boost her own image as a public crusader, and is promptly run out of town. That broom went in the wrong end.
Good night, everybody.
This story also features one of the most epic things ever. Period. Santa Stein in a rocket sleigh. That's just awesome. However, there is a down end to Jingle Belle. Knock it off. You see, one other thing that makes Jingle Belle unique is that she's not featured in a continuous series, in a traditional sense. The Jingle Belle comics are released in single volumes or one-shots. I guess the reason for this is because Paul Dini writes all the scripts by himself. The drawback is that there are often long periods between comics, sometimes 6 months, and sometimes even up to 3 years between an issue. And since Jingle Belle's debut in 1999, she's hopped from publisher to publisher. She's a rather elusive elf, you see. It's actually an interesting practice, writing a script and then doing the rounds to see who will publish it. And probably wouldn't work except for an established writer like Paul Dini. This is Dini's brainchild, and he probably wants as much creative control over it as possible. You see, what makes Jingle Belle so great is that there's an innocence to the series, but at the same time it has this adult edge. Most publishers would ask him to go one way or the other, but again, that's not Dini. He wants genuine characters. Jingle can be sweet and nice, but she can also flip people off. Yeah, I got this animation from Jingle Belle's own personal website. It's got activities and information, and short animations. The only thing is, well, it's kinda... do you know those semi-dilapidated holiday-themed amusement parks? Well, picture one in its off-season. Now picture it on fire. Now, don't get me wrong, this is very impressive back in 2000, but now things are a little more polished. But that doesn't matter. It's really about the comics, and in the end, it's a matter of quality over quantity. I highly recommend each and every issue that has ever been produced. In fact, they just released Jingle Belle Gift Wrapped, a reprinting of the Krampus story along with some new ones. So go check it out. I could tell right off the bat that Jingle Belle is a labor of love, not just for Dini, but everyone involved. In fact, I can't think of any other comic book character that has gone through the hands of so many artists in such a short amount of time with such a limited circulation. But of course, big props to Stephanie Gladden, the most reoccurring artist on the series. I love that line work. Check out Jingle Belle. She'll rock your stockings.
Jingle bell, jingle bell, jingle bell rock. Jingle bells swing and jingle bells ring. Snowing and blowing up bushels of fun. Now the jingle hop has begun. Jingle bell, jingle bell, jingle bell rock.
Smile, Santa.